Hey, Dave LaCalle with HeadGames Motorworks, and today we are going to talk about Jon Rogers VK56. Keep watching. So in the last video I did about Jon, we did a teardown. I showed you all the parts. I showed you I'll put a link somewhere. Maybe we'll put a link at the end of this video. So we did a whole teardown. We showed what the cylinder head was about, what he had on the car. The car is fast as hell. If you don't know who Jon Rogers is, be sure to check out his page. His car is a really wicked 6-speed car. So it's last minute, and we have to get it ready for FL2K, and I'm knocking guides out of this thing, and the guide boss comes off with the valve guide. And I'm beside myself. I can't believe it because, well, we still have a deadline. That just means that we got a double time. I wasn't expecting to do some R&D on this cylinder head until after race season, but here we are. We're gonna do it right before FL2K. At least we're gonna do a pocket port. So that's what we're gonna do today. You're gonna pocket port the VK56 with me. We're gonna pocket port it. We're gonna put bronze guides the next couple days. We're gonna put bronze guides, valve job it, mill assemble. We're also gonna flow test it. We're gonna flow test it against the OEM head. We're gonna flow test what Jon had on the car, and that's it. I mean, it's gonna be a lot. This thing is going to be action-packed, and I said we have a deadline. So let's see if what we can do and if it will make FL2K. Keep watching. All right, guys, let's take a look at this VK56, see what it's all about. Intake port looking very, very VQ-ish. I'm going to put it at the VQ HR head. So it's not like a DE, it's more like an HR. If you guys have ever messed with a VQ35, this is it's a spitting image of it, and it's a great port. They're huge, but they make some jam as is. Exhaust port reminds me of pretty much every Nissan. EQs, the VR, they all kind of look similar. They have similar guide bosses, similar divider, similar shaped port. It's probably the same guy. Design them all. It's a pretty decent port. They flow pretty well. Usually in the 200s on the exhaust side. Definitely, I mean, they're big and they got big valves. 31.2 millimeter exhaust valve, 37 millimeter exhaust valve. Big as hell. Big as hell. But you know, not the biggest. But here's a combustion chamber. Typical Nissan fashion. We like to use the combustion chamber to promote some detonation, some pre-ignition. We want to make it so it has some hot spots. For whatever reason, that's a Nissan thing. I don't really understand why, but you know, that's every manufacturer has its thing, and this seems to be Nissan's thing. Let's put a hot spot in the chamber. So we're gonna flow it stock, we're gonna flow it pocket ported, and we're gonna flow his head too. See which one wins. Keep watching. All right, I'm gonna go knock the guides out and I'll meet you in the porting room. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We don't have a lot of time. So we're gonna port the area underneath the valve seat and the short side radius, which is the radius that goes into the rest of the port over here and right here. and we're going to resize the bowl in relation to the size of the valve. Now, right here, you see, as I haven't measured any of this stuff yet, but this is done by the factory. It has like a little bit of a lip. We're going to take that lip out. We're going to blend all this in, and then it gets guides, and we're going to put a valve job in it. Now, you might be wondering, Jon had a fully ported head, Dave. You're not giving him back a fully ported head. Well, A, there's just no time for that. That's the truth. Sometimes things don't work out that way. But second thing is, Jon ported it, but he murdered the short turns. And I think that the short turns done correctly, and just doing the pocket ports, leaving the runner alone, is gonna flow more than his fully ported cylinder head. You don't always need a fully ported cylinder head in order to gain flow. And this is gonna, I think I'm gonna show it. I don't know this, but hopefully my theory is correct. So after the valve job, I think we're gonna flow test it and we're gonna see what it does. Time to me to stop blabbing and start grinding. Ran into an issue on the exhaust side that I'm going to bring up, and that is the guide boss. Now, the guide boss is really getting in my way and grinding it because I can literally barely put my burr in here without hitting it. And that is going to be a problem because the area on this side, like right by the short turn where I want to widen it, I can't widen it with this here. And that means I can't get as much flow out of the cross-sectional area that I want to because this is here. So it's got to come out. This is the guide boss that I'm talking about. So the valve guide would sit above here. And my issue is that right here and right here on the turn, there's airflow there, guys. You make that short turn wider, and that is where you're going to find some gains. I measured it. I know where I need to be. And now we're going to make it. Now the guide bosses are removed, I can resize the bowl, then fine grind. We are all set on the exhaust. So I took the guide bosses out, widened up the short turns. Now this thing is ready for guides in the valve job. It's easy to think that a valve job is just a valve job, and especially when it comes to this type of application, a valve job is very critical because we need the airflow, and the airflow comes from knowing what valve jobs work and what valve jobs don't. Now, what we're going to install in here is a valve job that we already know works on a GTR, it works on the VQ. It actually, in and of itself, will pick up 20 to 30 CFM. So are we going to beat Jon? That's still the question we're going to answer at the end of this. Keep watching. Now it's been valve jobbed. It is time for combustion chambers. Time for combustion chamber because, well, there is quite a few hot spots. Talking here, as I said earlier, Nissan loves to live in the danger zone, and also because of the valve job, you'll see that there is little hot spots right between the valves here and right here, the little sharp edges, and we just want to remove them all. I'm not going to change the shape so much, but I am going to blend it. I'm going to knock this back here. I'm going to knock this back here. You're going to see me do it by eye. Well, you'll see they're straight. But if you guys are novices and you're watching this because you want to port these heads, I would lay a line here. Make sure that you know what you're taking out if you've never done it before. right, boys and girls. Ta-da! Yeah, I'm a terrible presenter. Anyway, here we go. This thing is all ready for the flow bench. We deshrouded the valves. We laid this back here and up here, and we blended all this into the valve job. It's all blended into the top cut of the valve job. So now this thing is ready for all the boost that Jon's gonna throw at it. Now it's time to throw this thing on a flow bench and see what we got. All right, let's go over the numbers. You guys ready for some shit? I got some shit for you. First off, we are going to do a comparison video. Now, these heads left, and I don't have them to show you, to like make a full video out of it, but I want to show you the numbers in a separate video because I think I don't want to mud this one up against the Coyote. Because I think you guys would be super surprised. I already know this, but you guys would be super surprised how these compare to the Coyote. I flow tested the OEM, I flow tested Jon's head, and I flow tested our pocket port R. Were we able to beat Jon with his full port? Now, I know that Jon's a novice. You're thinking, man, but it was still a full port. I think a lot of people are going to look at it as he had a full port versus a pocket port R. Is it possible? Well, as much as I love Jon, he murdered the short turns. And I think that that is, and the valve job was okay, but it wasn't HeadGames quality. So I think that that's part of the reason why we're going to see some gains here. All right, so at 100 lift, we picked up 8 CFM over OEM and 21 CFM over Jon. So what happened here was Jon's head actually flowed 12, 13 CFM less at 100 lift than OEM. So you heard it at 100, which happens. That happens, guys. So we only picked up 8 over that. At 200 lift, we picked up 15 CFM over the OEM and 36 again over Jon's full port. 300 lift, it's like 15 to 15 CFM across the board, you know, gain over OEM versus the full port. 19 CFM at 400 lift over 13 CFM over his full port. And at 500 lift, we are 24 CFM over the OEM and 12 CFM over the full port. At 100 lift on the intake sides, we both lost, Jon and I both lost at 100 lift to the OEM. So we lost 11 CFM over the OEM, and Jon, we gained 1 CFM over Jon, which is, we can't even use that as a gain. At 200 lift, we picked up 9 CFM over the OEM and only 3 CFM over the full port. At 300 lift, we picked up 25 CFM over the OEM and 9 CFM over the full port. At 400 lift, we picked up 21 CFM over the OEM and 13 CFM over Jon's port. At 500 lift, we picked up 19 CFM over the OEM and 17 over the full port. So I think what we're seeing here is really that I personally don't think that the valve job didn't pick up as much as I thought it would. So we're gonna probably have to do some R&D on this cylinder head to find a different valve job, because normally I would see bigger numbers just from the valve job alone. Not even getting into the pocket port, not resizing it or anything. Yes, did we see a gain? Absolutely. But is it the gain that I was expecting to see? No. And this is part of R&D. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to do it again and, you know, try different valve jobs and get a junk head and do all that stuff. We just had to run and gun and do something, and we did definitely gain something. So he's going to see some exhaust flow, but he's just not going to see what he's going to see later on. And I think once we do the valve job, we get the valve job nailed down, we're going to see about another 15 to 20 CFM. But this also tells me is that we will probably see less gain from a full port with the valve job, because this thing, I just don't see it gaining a whole lot more. I think if we picked up 30 CFM over this, or I think that'd be a big number. All right, since the last video, we have figured out what we're going to use for parts, and that is these SuperTech valves. Jon supplied some SuperTech valves for this, and then we have their Inconel flat-faced exhaust valve for this, and then GSC made us this nifty locator. Now, this locator is actually going to be available with this spring kit. Hopefully, Greg will put it on the website soon. But here you go. This is the retainer for it, and the bad boy. This valve spring is just a killer setup, and I know that Jon's going to be able to have a lot more room to grow. We've used this valve spring up to 70, 80, 100 pounds of boost, 10,000, 11,000 RPM. It does not care. I think an awesome question that was asked on last week's video was about using the distance to coil bind when setting up the valve spring, and that is definitely something that you want to pay attention to. So last week I showed you what the spring sets up at, but not what we're going to set it up as. Does that make sense? So basically, I was showing that there's a lot of room in the spring, but I wasn't showing you what we're actually going to install it at. And that's pretty much what you see whenever you go to a manufacturer's website and you try to look at what they are going to install it at, and they tell you the distance to coil bind. That doesn't mean that that distance is actually there. You actually measure the valve spring itself to know the distance. And whenever you're using a spring in a race application, a lot of RPM, you want to fight spring search, is what this gentleman brought up. And I totally agree. It's something that we always pay attention to. And we try to get it as close to coil bind as we can safely. So sometimes we'll sneak up on a little bit more coil bind, distance to coil bind, and we're going to tighten it up. And when you tighten it up, if you ever use a slinky, you think about a spring and it's, you know, it's this far away and then the center is moving around, the same thing's going to happen in your engine. So the closer you get that thing to coil bind, the more you're going to control that valve spring from moving around, and that is what you want. You don't want that spring surge, and the way you do that is to shim the spring or install it in a correct height. I'm actually about to show you that. So what I'm talking about here is we have an install height of 1320. We have a valve lift of 470. We are 138 on the seat. We're 286 open. The bind height is 759 thousandths, and the bind clearance is 90 thousandths. So it's 90 thousandths away from coil bind. Now, we can tighten that up. We can be 60, 70, and we can get that with a shim, but that's something we're going to do at full install. So this is what we're going to figure out, is how much distance you have to coil bind, so you know how much shim you can put in there. And some of that's a dance, because certain springs like certain things. And that's something, if you learn the line, if you learn that particular spring, you know what it likes and you know what it doesn't like. And you can tell that when the head comes back and you take it apart, or if you have a lot of different cylinder heads that come in with the same spring kit, you kind of know what it likes. And you also, it helps know what not to install as well, because certain springs, you can get them as close to coil bind as possible, and it doesn't matter because they don't have enough spring pressure. They don't have enough ass to do what you need to do. So let's get to installing. All right, so that's going to do it for us today, and I sure hope you appreciate us sharing all this information, because, well, it's information I've never shared before. I've never been under the gun and have to do R&D and then just share it with all of you. And a failure. I failed. I knocked that guide out that broke, and then the whole guide boss came with it, and I was not expecting any of this to happen, but that, again, is the way the cookie crumbles, and you just have to roll with it. And I decided to share it with all of you. And usually, like when I bring it to YouTube, it is a tried and true package. It's an R&D. We already have figured it out. And this time we didn't do that. So I sure hope that everybody appreciates that. And then second thing is, I want to say, if you guys are still watching, I plan on doing some kind of video, like a vlog style. I know I've sucked at them before. I've tried them before and I've sucked at it.
but I want to try to do it again for World Cup. Now, Jon's going to try to make FL2K with this, but right after that, a month, 4 weeks after that, is WCF, and it's like the biggest race of the year. And I'm thinking that we're going to do a vlog, even though I suck at them. I'm going to talk about my camera equipment. I'm going to talk about what Jon goes through, what some of my other customers go through, and I want to know, do you guys even want to see that? Or Dave, leave that stuff to yourself, and I just want to see the race on Flow Racing. That's fine. Just I want to hear something. I want to see, what do you guys want to see from World Cup, and see if I can do it. I have to get over the fear of talking in front of a camera when it's not in the shop and it's at a race. That's a big deal for me to get over, and I know that I have to do that. That's it. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Toodles.